Ever tangle with an HOA dictator who thinks your lakefront's her personal kingdom? Meet Eleanor Blackwood, Lakeside Shores, perm-crowned tyrant, swinging her rulebook like a scepter at my 60-year-old dock. I'm Charles Turner, 38, a remote IT engineer with a fishing obsession holed up in my wife Emma's grandfather's cabin by a 100-acre lake that sparkles like a screensaver. Picture me, coffee steaming, boots scuffing the weathered planks of our private dock rod, propped nearby, a bass flipping near the posts. The dock's not just wood, it's Emma's childhood etched with her grandpa's initials, from 1962. A relic of summers spent casting lines under his squinting grin. Then Eleanor's neon violation notice slapped me like a server crash. I've debugged tech meltdowns, but this was audacity on steroids. The notice taped to the dock's splintered post, like a low-rent eviction, screamed, "Remove non-compliant structure within 30 days," in bold caps, threatening $100. Daily fines. A letter in my mailbox sealed with Eleanor's florid signature doubled down. Dismantle the dock or face her wrath, non-compliant. This dock's been here since JFK was president, long before Lakeside Shores cookie-cutter villas sprouted in 1990. I grew up untangling code, not battling bureaucrats, but Eleanor's nerve lit a fire in my gut. Lakeside Shores is a patchwork of glitzy seasonal homes and year-round cabins, their manicured lawns sneering at our wildflower patch and sagging porch. Eleanor, 60s stout with a perm tighter than her grip on power, rules the HOA like a small-town czar fining mailboxes banning unapproved shrubs. Now she's after my dock, calling it a visual blight on her precious lakefront. Emma and I bought this place 6 months ago, chasing nostalgia and quiet. I'd wrap my IT work early fishing at dusk as the lake swallowed the day's stress. Emma, sketching wildflowers by the cabin, would smile at the base I'd release. This dock was our sanctuary until Eleanor's pen. The dock's history runs deep. Emma's grandpa, a carpenter with hands like oak, built it in '62. Every plank measured, every nail driven with care. He'd take young Emma out at dawn, teaching her to bait hooks. His initials, J.H., carved into a post as a quiet boast. She'd recount those summers, eyes misty as we fixed the cabin's leaky roof. For me, a city kid turned tech drone, the dock was freedom. A place to swap monitors for ripples, algorithms for fish. We'd been here 2 weeks, blissed out, when neighbors dropped by. Victor Ramirez, 70s, a retired vet with a grip that could crush walnuts, left a welcome basket of jams and a grin. "Nice to have year-round folks," he said, voice warm. This place hums in summer. Big fishing festival. 40 years running, Victor's words piqued my curiosity. The Lakeside Legends Festival. A 40-year tradition, was the community's heartbeat. Photos on the HOA website showed tents sprawling along the shore, kids with painted faces, anglers hoisting trophy bass, and a temporary pier for their $5,000 prize tournament. The week-long bash drew crowds from neighboring towns with fish tacos, live music, and a parade. It sounded like a blast. I pictured myself in the base division, rod in hand. But Victor's offhand comment stuck. HOA's been using the lakefront forever. No questions asked. My dock apparently was in their way. I called Sophia Lynn, a neighbor who'd clashed with Eleanor over solar panels. "She's ruthless," Sophia warned, voice low over the phone. "Your dock's probably blocking her lake view or something bigger. Watch out." Her words sent me to the attic, where I dug through dusty boxes beside Emma's grandpa's old tackle box. There it was. The 1962 deed, claiming the lakefront and dock permits intact. A quick dive into state law confirmed my hunch. Riparian rights guaranteed my access to the lake. Eleanor's notice was starting to look like a bluff. I rang Eleanor's office, hoping to reason Mr. Turner. She purred, voice dripping condescension. "Our guidelines require modern aesthetics. Dock's an eyesore. I explained its history, Grandpa's permits, its structural soundness. Her laugh was dry as gravel. This isn't a museum. Charles' HOA rules trump sentiment. When I pressed about the dock, predating her organization, she sighed. Theatrical. Read the bylaws. The 30-day clock's ticking. Her tone smug, unchallenged, made my blood boil. That night, brooding by the dock, I spotted Eleanor and Marcus Reed, her HOA crony, whispering near my property line. That dock's gotta go, she muttered, gesturing at my shore. Blocks my view. And our festival pier. Marcus nodded, scribbling notes. They didn't see me, but their words were a gut punch. This wasn't about rules, it was personal. I set up a night vision camera by the dock, hidden in a post lens, aimed at the planks. Next morning, my phone pinged camera alert. Eleanor, green, blazer, swapped for a sweater, was measuring my dock's posts, smirking like she'd already won. I sent the clip to Sophia. She's scheming. She texted Crash, their emergency meeting tomorrow. If you're loving this dock drama, smash that like button to keep the fight rolling. I stood on the dock lake, lapping the cabin's porch, creaking under the stars. Eleanor thought she owned Lakeside Shores, but I had her on tape, a deed and a growing hunch. This wasn't just about a dock, it was war, and my board was set. Eleanor Blackwood's dockside snooping, caught on my camera, was a middle finger to my lakefront haven. Her neon violation notice demanding I tear down my 60-year-old dock, or face $100 daily fines, sat crumpled in my cabin, the lake glinting past our wildflower patch, and Emma's grandpa's weathered tackle box. Charles Turner doesn't fold. But Eleanor Lakeside Shores' HOA queen thought she owned my slice of water. I stood on the porch, my fishing rod leaning against the rail, the dock's carved initials gleaming in the sun. Sophia's tip to crash the HOA meeting tonight had me grinning. Eleanor's perm and green blazer wouldn't save her from my deed or my footage. Victor Ramirez swung by at noon, his truck rattling past the cabin's overgrown shrubs. Charles' HOA's got an emergency meeting, he said, hands calloused from years in uniform. Eleanor's pushing to block your dock access, something about the walkway being unsafe. I snorted, kicking a pebble. Unsafe. They're squatting on state lakefront for their festival, and my dock's the problem. Worse, Victor said, eyes sharp. They're fining folks left and right. Sophia got hit $500 for her solar panels last year. Legal. But Eleanor didn't care. Sophia Lynn, our neighbor, had warned me about Eleanor's bulldog tactics. I pictured her fighting for her panels, now cheering me on. I called Walter Graham, a 72-year-old retired attorney, down the shore, who'd battled Eleanor over his navy blue house. They're pivoting. He chuckled, voice gravelly. Can't touch your dock legally, so they're targeting access. Bring Victor tonight. We'll shake their cage. The Lakeside Shores Community Center was a beige box walls, plastered with fishing festival photos, smiling kids, trophy base. Eleanor stood at a podium, perm, rigid green blazer, screaming authority. The Turner dock jeopardizes safety, she droned to 30 restless neighbors, waving my notice like a flag. Its walkway crosses HOA land, unacceptable. I strode in. Walter and Victor flanking me, holding my 1962 deed, and a USB with Eleanor's snooping clip. Safety, Eleanor. I tossed the deed on her table, its ink glaring. Your festival's been using my lakefront for 40 years. No permission, no state rights. That's trespassing. The room stirred, Sophia's eyes widening from the front row. Eleanor's jowls tightened, her knuckles white on the podium. Mr. Turner, the HOA controls common areas, walkways included. Her board member, Marcus Reed, flashed a map claiming my dock's path, crossed 6 feet of their turf. Show your lakefront deed, I said. Voice calm, but steel. Walter stepped up, glasses glinting. State records show the lake and 16-foot shore are public, not HOA. You've got no claim. Victor nodded, arms crossed. You find Sophia's panels. $500 for nothing. Now Charles's dock. Sophia stood, voice shaky. My panels were legal. Eleanor just wanted them gone. Murmurs rippled. George Winters, an elderly gardener, nodded. Eleanor's gavel slammed. This is disruptive security. Walter plugged the USB into their projector. Eleanor's dock. Snoop flashed up, her smirk clear. Your president trespassing, I said. Gasps echoed Sophia, clutching her bag. Eleanor pointed, face red. You're slandering me? Turner, I grinned. Slander's on tape. 1,000 views already. Walter's phone lit up. Live stream buzzing. George yelled, what about my $200 garden fine? The room split half, cheering, half glaring at Eleanor. Security shoved us out, Eleanor's hiss trailing. You'll pay, Turner. Outside, Sophia grabbed my arm. She's planning a new pier, heard it at the market. Wants your dock gone for her view. Victor nodded grim. My buddy says they're fencing your path tomorrow. I gripped the deed, lake lapping beyond the wildflowers. Eleanor thought she'd caged me, but my cameras were rolling, and Walter's legal briefs were sharp. The festival was 6 weeks away. Our trap was set. Eleanor Blackwood's hiss at the HOA meeting. You'll pay. Turner was a snake's rattle, but Charles Turner's debugged worse bugs in code. Her neon notice demanding I demolish my dock was a bad joke next to my 1962 deed, safe in my cabin. By the wildflower patch, Walter's live stream, now at 1,000 views, had Lakeside Shores buzzing with Sophia's $500 solar panel fine and George's $200 garden penalty, stoking the fire. My cameras caught Eleanor's lackey Marcus Reed, scoping my dock's path. I stood by the lake bass, jumping near the weathered posts, Emma's grandpa's initials carved deep. Eleanor's fence was up tomorrow. My trap was baited. Sophia Lynn rolled up at dawn, her sedan crunching gravel. Charles. They're moving fast, she said, laptop glowing. Eleanor's crew's fencing. Your walkway today. Safety hazard. She's pushing a new pier for the festival right by her house. I kicked a wildflower jaw, tight, blocking my dock for her view on state lakefront. Worse, she said, eyes sharp. Victor heard, she's got a deal with Lakeview Construction, big money. They're fining folks like George to scare them. George Winters, 80s, tended a garden that fed his grandkids, now under Eleanor's boot. Walter called, voice grim. They're dodging your deed with this fence nonsense. Meet Logan Parker at the county office. He's got dirt. Logan, a land management specialist, was my next play. I grabbed Sophia. We're exposing her pier scam. George met us at his garden. Hands shaky, a $200 fine letter crumpled. They'll take my plot, Charles, he said. Eyes wet. Eleanor says, it's untidy for her festival. Walter snapped a photo. This is extortion. We'll hit her today. The county office was a drab cube, maps strewn across Logan's desk. Lakeside's HOA doesn't own the lakefront, he said, pointing to a shoreline buffer. State property. 16-foot margin. Your dock's clear. But their festival piers on shaky ground. I grinned. Deed in hand, and Eleanor's fence. Logan's eyes twinkled. Riparian rights. You own access. That fence is illegal. Armed, we hit the lakefront where Eleanor's crew was bolting a metal fence across my dock's path. She strutted in her green blazer, perm, bouncing barking orders to Brian Mitchell, the property manager. Prime festival spot. She boomed to a crowd of neighbors gesturing at my shore. This fence ensures safety. I walked up, Walter, Sophia, and George behind, holding Logan's map and my deed. Safety, Eleanor. I tossed the deed at her feet. Ink glaring. You're blocking my legal access, state law says. That's theft. Your pier's on public land. No permits. The crowd, 20 neighbors. Festival vendors froze. Eleanor's jowls quivered, nails digging into her clipboard. Turner? You're obstructing progress. Walter raised his phone, live stream, at 2,000 views. Your fence violates riparian rights. County's investigating. George stepped up, voice cracking. My garden feeds my family. You fined me $200 for your pier. View. Sophia yelled. My panels were $500. Same scam, neighbors, murmured a vendor, muttering. She's rigging the festival. Brian shifted uneasy. Eleanor snapped. This is our lake, I grinned. State says, 16-foot shores public. Your pier's toast. Walter flashed Logan's map. This is fraud. Eleanor Sophia's stream hit 3,000 vendors filmed, George rallying them. Eleanor lunged for Walter's phone, but Sophia blocked her eyes. Fierce. No more neighbors, split half cheering, half booing. Eleanor roared. Security, as Brian hesitated. Security shoved us off. Eleanor's glare. Venomous. You're finished, Turner. George clutched his fine, whispering, My garden. Sophia nodded. Victor says she's meeting Lakeview tonight. I gripped the deed lake calm beyond the wildflowers. My cameras pinged Eleanor's blazer by my dock. Marcus trailing. Her pier was wobbling, but the festival was a month away, and our net was tightening. Eleanor Blackwood's venomous glare by my fenced-off dock. You're finished. Turner was a desperate jab, but Charles Turner's cracked, tougher code, her neon notice demanding I rip out my 60-year-old dock, was nothing against my 1962 deed tucked in my cabin by the wildflower patch. Walter's live stream, now at 3,000 views, had Lakeside Shores HOA reeling with Sophia's $500 panel fine and George's $200 garden hit, fueling the rebellion. My cameras caught Eleanor with Lakeview construction suits, plotting her festival pier. I stood by the lake bass leaping near my dock's posts, Emma's grandpa's initials carved proud. The festival was 3 weeks away. My net was closing. Walter crashed my porch at noon, his battered briefcase stuffed with county maps. Charles Eleanor's doubling down, he said, eyes gleaming. They're raising your fine to $250 daily. Community disruption. Her peers tied to Lakeview, her brother-in-law's firm. I tossed a pebble, grinning on state lakefront, with my riparian rights locked. Better, he said, pulling a map. Sophia's contact says your dock's over a bass spawning ground. Protected by DNR, Sophia had tipped me to Daniel Ortiz, a local aquatic biologist. Emma's grandpa always said, Base swarmed our posts in spring. We need Daniel, I told Walter. Let's bury her pier. Sophia called, voice urgent. They're prepping the festival tents. New pier stakes. Eleanor's bullying George again, $500. Now I pictured George weeding his garden, now facing ruin. We're hitting her at the lakefront, I said. Daniel met us at my dock, wetsuit on gear, gleaming spotted bass spawn here, he said, eyeing the gravel beds. If this is a breeding ground, DNR shuts down any pier. We dove. Daniel snapping photos of bass nests, me hauling sample bags. The water was clear, sunlight dancing on the lake bed. Marcus Reed appeared on shore phone, out reporting to Eleanor. Research, Daniel shouted, unfazed logging oxygen levels. Back on the dock, he grinned. Critical spawning habitat. Your dock's minimal impact, but Eleanor's pier would wreck it. I emailed Rachel Morgan, DNR inspector, with Daniel's photos. Pier's a violation, she replied, scheduling a survey. At the lakefront, Eleanor was pitching her pier to festival sponsors. Green blazer, crisp perm bouncing Lakeside's legacy, she boomed, gesturing at my shore. Our pier ensures tradition. Hence, sprawled stakes in state land. I strode up, Walter, Sophia, and Daniel behind, holding Daniel's report and my deed. Tradition, Eleanor. I tossed the deed on her table. Ink a slap. Your pier's on state land. No permits, DNR's coming. My dock's over, a bass spawning ground. You'd destroy. Sponsors froze clipboards down. Eleanor's face reddened, nails clawing her podium. Turner, you're sabotaging our festival. Walter raised his tablet live stream at 4,000 views. This report spotted base spawning, protected by law. Your pier's dead. Sophia stepped up, voice fierce. You find George, $500. His garden's no threat. George yelled from the crowd. My grandkids eat from that plot. A sponsor stood. No permits. I grinned. State owns the shore, check. DNR. Daniel flashed his photos. Base nests clear as day. This is fraud, Eleanor. Sophia's stream hit 5,000 vendors filmed George rallying neighbors. Eleanor lunged for Walter's tablet, but Daniel blocked her, calm but firm. Science doesn't lie. Sponsors bolted, muttering. No funding, Eleanor roared. Security, as Marcus hesitated. Security shoved us off, Eleanor's voice cracking. You'll ruin everything. Turner. Sophia clutched. Daniel's report whispering. George's garden. Walter nodded. Rachel says DNR's suspending her pier tomorrow. I gripped the deed lake, calm beyond the wildflowers. My cameras pinged Eleanor's blazer by her half-built pier. Marcus trailing. Her festival was cracking, but she'd fight dirty, and my final card was ready. Eleanor Blackwood's desperate snarl by her half-built pier. You'll ruin everything. Turner was her last gasp. But Charles Turner's untangled worse knots in a T. Her neon notice demanding I torch my dock was dust against my 1962 deed, and Daniel Ortiz's base spawning report now in DNR's hands, Walter's live stream spiking at 5,000 views, had Lakeside Shores HOA crumbling. Sophia's $500 panel fine, George's $500 garden hit, and Eleanor's Lakeview construction deal exposed. The DNR's pier suspension notice taped to a stake mocked her festival plans. I stood by my dock bass swirling near Emma's grandpa's carved initials lake, glinting past the wildflowers. Tonight's emergency HOA meeting was my endgame. Eleanor's perm was toast. Sophia burst into my cabin at dawn, laptop blazing. Charles Eleanor's rallying her loyalists, she said, eyes fierce. They're voting to ban your dock access entirely. $500 daily fines. Festival sabotage. She's blaming you for the DNR's ban. I laughed, tossing a fishing lure. Sabotage. Her pier would have killed the base we fish for. Better, she said, grinning. Walter's got her Lakeview contract, her brother-in-law's signature fraud. My dock fenced off for weeks, stood defiant. But the $250 fines stung George. Called voice firm. They're threatening my garden again. $750 now, I'm in. Walter's truck rattled up DNR's. Rachel Morgan's coming tonight, spawning grounds confirmed. Eleanor's done. I pictured George's garden feeding his grandkids now, a pawn in Eleanor's game. Let's gut her, I said. Gripping the deed, Lakeside Shores' community center was a pressure cooker, you don't 60. Neighbors crammed in. Eleanor at the podium in her green blazer perm, sagging. Turner's actions threaten our 40-year festival, she thundered, waving a ban notice. We vote to seize his dock access community. Survival depends on it. Marcus? Reed flashed a map claiming my path was a hazard. I strode in. Walter, Sophia, Daniel, and George beside holding Daniel's DNR report, the deed and Lakeview's contract. Survival. Eleanor. I tossed the deed on her desk. Ink, a blade. You built an illegal fence, planned a pier on state land, and now you're killing our bass spawning grounds. The crowd roared, George waving his fine notice. Eleanor's jowls shook nails, clawing her clipboard. You're lying. Walter raised his tablet. Live stream at 7,000 views. This contract, your brother-in-law's firm, no bids? Fraud. Sophia stepped up, voice sharp. You find my panels. $500. George's garden, $750. For your pier view, George bellowed. My grandkids starve for your greed. Neighbors surged a vendor shouting, "We fund the festival." Daniel flashed his report. Base nests, gravel beds. DNR's protection order saves our fish. Eleanor's pier would have wrecked it. Rachel Morgan stood, DNR badge gleaming. The lakefront's state land no HOA rights. Piers canceled Sophia's stream. Hit 9,000 Fisher's vendors watching Eleanor lunged for the tablet, but George blocked her eyes. Fierce. Enough. Marcus bolted for the door, but Victor Ramirez cut him off, voice booming. Resign, Eleanor. Eleanor's gavel fell, blazer sagging, Rachel clarified. Turner's dock is legal, minimal impact. Your fence violates riparian rights. Walter tossed the contract. You stole from our lake. A retiree. Harold Schmidt stood. Vote. No confidence in Eleanor. Fines canceled. Sophia George. All cheers erupted, Eleanor collapsing in her chair. Diana Foster, a new resident and environmental lawyer, stepped up. I nominate myself transparent HOA. The vote was swift. Eleanor ousted Diana in. Sheriffs arrived. Walter's tip on Lakeview fraud. Blackwood, you're under investigation, a deputy said. Eleanor's face crumpled. Marcus silent. The fence was down by dawn. My dock-free bass swirling like Grandpa's legacy. Outside, George hugged his grandkid's garden safe. Sophia grinned, leaning on the cabin's porch. Your grandpa'd love this. Emma sketching nearby, nodded. Walter tallied. 12,000 views, Lakeview. Pulling funds, I opened my dock for the festival limited to safe zones and launched a Lakeside Ecology Fund, education conservation, no piers. A sign for Grandpa read, Fish live, lake thrives. The festival rocked buoys marking spawning grounds. Kids learning catch and release. Daniel's bass talk drew crowds, record catches flooding the shore. Lakeside Shores split some, grumbled hating the truth about Eleanor's fines. My dock stood proud, paint fresh but rugged, a nod to Grandpa's fight. Sophia's panels gleamed. George's garden bloomed. I fished at dusk. Lake, clear wildflowers, swaying Eleanor's pier scrap. Her frauds in court, her house for sale. Y'all, that's the tale. Eleanor's HOA thrones mulch. My dock's free. Grandpa's deed. Daniel's science. And a stubborn IT guy flipped it. George's garden's his. Lakeside learned. Don't mess with a fisherman's lake, and smirk. It's messy, some sneer. But the base swim. Smash that like drop a comment faced an Eleanor. Got a doc story. I'm all eyes. Share from Maine or Maui. Let's see. This Sparkfly subscribe. We're not done dunking tyrants yet.